Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I am your host, Grenadier One. As always, I hope you are having a good week. Gonna probably be a little bit short today. I can't say that there's not a lot going on, because there is one thing that is looming over everything, but honestly it's a very complex topic. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I have an update on a story from a few weeks back that I have got some new information on, so I'll give you that at the end. But that complex topic that is looming over everything that we're doing is it's a big deal. It's just that it's not really something that I have the space, the bandwidth in this episode or any of my episodes to really go into full detail about. But let's dive right into the banking collapse. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Last week, the Silicon Valley Bank collapsed. There are a host of articles out there that came out after this event that gave some insight into what the business practices were at SVB, and needless to say, it's not a shock that this bank has gone under. What is also not shocking is that the contagion didn't stay isolated to SVB. It began to spread to other banks, and it took some very quick action on the part of the government to leap into the mix and assure everyone that everything was going to be fine and we should ignore the flames and sparks and all of that smoke. Everything's fine here, just move along. Don't look too detailed, too closely at it. But anyway, I think they managed to slow down the fire, but it's still burning. With the international bank, I think it was Swiss bank, Credit Suisse, begin their collapse today. So they're the latest loss here. But so what happened to SVB to cause it to collapse? Well, this is where things can get very complex, and honestly, it's a complexity that, I'm not all that sharp on myself, okay? And that's intentionally done to keep us, out of the loop, by the way. They make this literally so complex that it's difficult to understand, so that you'll just glass over and just, just trust them when they tell you that, normally the system works just fine. Well, that's sort of true. It does until a point, and then it does not. Mr. Ponzi's scheme, his plan worked well until it didn't too, but, I digress a little. Basically, the short version is that the bank took in people's money, then they made a crap ton of bad investments with that money to the point that they lost huge sums of it and struggled to cover the transactions that their customers were making. And this causes a run. People scramble to pull their money out of the bank. And I want to add here that all the while, that average Joes were literally lining up outside of closed branches of this bank in California, $1 billion was transferred out of the bank to Israeli customers so that their deposits were fully covered by the funds the bank still had on hand. U.S. customers, well, it's funny how that works, isn't it? At any rate, the feds step in and do something that is, well, it's completely insane, and honestly, it's just yet another signpost on the highway to hell. But see, normally, as many of you may know, the FDIC insures deposits for accounts up to $250,000. So this generally is going to cover the little guy, all right? Most of us don't have more than that sitting in the bank at any one time. And this, supposedly these funds to cover the deposits do not come from taxpayers. They come from a fund that the bank pays into, which is to say that the bank charges their customers fees and other assorted things to generate the money going into that fund. So we pay for it. It's just, not a direct tax or a direct transfer of wealth from us to us. But anyway, this means that the little guy is generally protected from this kind of situation. Well, that's good, but the problem is that SVB didn't have a whole lot of little guys. This bank was primarily a bank for corporations and organizations and wealthy individuals, these startups and things like this. Oddly enough, several hundred Israeli startups, which is why they got that $1 billion. But anyway, something like 95% of its customers had more than $250,000 deposited in the bank, and that's bad. So that means that the FDIC is not really going to be much of a help there. But anyway, this resulted in the administration leaping into action to protect their wealthy California supporters and woke corporations. The pudding president unilaterally decided that the federal government was going to cover the deposits of SVB fully. Janet Yellen, who is the head banker American over there at the Fed, claims that the funds to cover SVB will not come from taxpayers. How? How can they not come from taxpayers? Where is this source of money to cover all the other banks, which will collapse? You know, what's going to cover their deposits fully going into the future? Where's that going to come from, if not taxpayers? How can you tell Americans that the depositors at SVB are fully covered, but you will not cover any banks going forward, any other banks going forward? You can't. That's not equal protection. That's illegal. So every depositor is now fully covered going forward. And this was all done by executive fiat. No congressional oversight, no congressional approval, just the people operating Biden deciding that the government will now cover potentially hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars of losses that could be coming. Yellen can go fuck herself. I mean, to be frank, she's lying. There is just no other way around this. This is going to hit us one way or the other. Either this will come directly from taxpayer funds, a transfer of money from the government into some kind of fund or something like that, or what is really going to happen is that the Fed money machine will go brr, and more vapor dollar bills will be created to back up these banks. And in the meantime, the banks will collect the interest and pay their owners and officers bonuses and their payouts, and we get rocket inflation. We live in Weimar times, folks. If you don't know what that is, you might want to educate yourself on the Weimar government in Germany in the late 20s or the mid-20s. Now, I stated something on Gab the other day that I want to go into a little bit here. And I've mentioned it before on the show, and I think I need to do maybe a more in-depth look at this in a future episode that kind of pulls out some of the different elements and puts it all together into one show. But I don't believe for one second that this was just a random happening to SVB. I think SVB is a sacrificial lamb. And I've talked about the hypothesis that Joseph Farrell lays out in several of his books about a hidden system of finance. And this hidden system of finance allows a mix of government agencies and private individuals and groups, NGO, these kind of things, all this stuff going on to actively influence and control global and local events. It's outside of any kind of government, citizen oversight, and it funds just about every nefarious thing that you can imagine and technological things that you probably can't imagine. This hidden system is backed by real physical mediums like gold and silver. And I speculate, this is not something that Dr. Farrell talks about, but I speculate that it's also backed by the drug trade and human trafficking. But we don't really know for sure. Okay, there's it's a shadowy thing, and you only get glimpses of it every once in a while. Now, this is just like the normal public financial system in that the bankers also mismanage this one. And they loan out more than they can actually cover. And that means that every so often, to clear some of those transactions, those secret transactions, have to be made into public ones so that the losses can be transferred to the bank's customers and the taxpayers. You can't have the the hidden system operators actually fit the bill and absorb the loss. No, 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 no. So events like SVB and Credit Suisse are set up to happen. The hidden debts are made to look like poor investments or just, flat out bad record keeping or illegal activities within the bank, and the bank collapses. Sometimes they destroy processing centers like the Deutsche Bank facility that was in the World Trade Center. Hey, I don't have any records of those deposits, but I do owe these people. Miraculously how that happened. The records all just happened to burn. Sorry. Yeah, that's the kind of thing that takes place. And then the bank collapses, and the feds step in to assure the public that everything is fine, and the taxpayers fit the bill. Maybe somebody gets fired or even goes to jail, but the system remains intact, and the secret is never really quite let out of the bag. You get this impression, this idea that something's not right there, something's going on, but you just can't really get a hold on it and really get an understanding of it, because let's face it, this stuff is extremely complex. Okay, it's there's ins and outs, puts and takes, all this kind of stuff. It's very, very complex environment. What also happens right before the bank collapses is that many of the secret debts are transferred to the leaking bank, or the bank that's sinking, from other institutions. They're transferred over there to clear them out, all in one big collapse. So this leaky bank, it starts to conduct trades to bring in all of these other debts that need to be cleared. And then, we've bundled all this together, and now that bank collapses. The feds, the government, the taxpayers fit the bill, and everybody is hunky-dory, right? It's a scam. We are literally paying for our own oppression. To boil it down, our labor is transmogrified into all the hardships and obstacles that we face. All the crisis and turmoil that we see in our lives daily comes from this parasitic element that sits on our back and leeches our livelihoods from us. It rides us and tells us that everything we do is wrong and evil, and that we should be happy that we have it around to protect us and watch over us, so that we can go to the beach for a few days every year and own a bass boat. We need to rediscover the joys of defenestration. Anyway, keep watching what's going on, as this thing could go either way. It could be that this is a limited, controlled burn of a few banks, like I was talking about, but it could be that, the entire system's about to collapse. I know that, most of the funds that we're sending to Ukraine are very likely being used to clear some of this hidden system of finance, and you might recall, FTX being wrapped into that. I think there are links there, but I think that is a possible sign that this is snowballing. More and more could happen in the near future. I'm not telling you that you should run out and pull your money out of the bank. That's not what I'm saying. And honestly, I don't think that would help anyway. Something I would advise, though, and this is just me, and I'm no expert, so don't think I'm giving you, sound financial advice here, to put out all the caveats that they want you to put out there. I would look at savings accounts, maybe money that you've got sitting around, and possibly try to figure out if it's smarter for you to leave that as cash, or to take that money and put it into something more material that you can hold on to, even when inflation goes, space shuttle. Gold and silver and brass, land, food, all kinds of things that might be much better investments than just having your money sitting in a digital box on a record sheet somewhere. Now, again, that's just me. That's things that I'm looking at right now. That you do you and figure it out for yourself. But it might be a smart take right now. Okay, from the macro to the micro, let's get the update on something we mentioned a few weeks back. If you recall, I had a piece on the show, and Pete had some posts over on the mothership about a police shooting in North Carolina, a virtual SWAT firing squad that took place in Cherokee County, North Carolina, conducted by the Cherokee Indian Tribal Police SWAT team. Well, I have some interesting information about that situation that has come to light since the investigation began into this matter. The good news is that the man shot in this incident, who was completely innocent of any wrongdoing, by the way, is doing much better health-wise. He's up and about and recovering. He's posting on social media and giving information that he can give about he and his girlfriend and how they're doing. He was cleared of all charges brought against him. The local DA dropped everything, which is great to hear. I'm sure that is a weight off of his shoulders to know that he doesn't have to deal with these physical injuries while also having to defend himself against false charges with this legal threat looming over his head. So that's the good. That's the good. The bad news is that he and his girlfriend have not returned to their property. They are in fear that this situation could escalate further. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, what has come to light as this investigation unfolds is that indeed the couple were swatted by their neighbor. Recently, the 911 call was released, and what it reveals is that this neighbor just has a rage and hate boner for these two and has called 911 approximately 11 times. I got some different numbers there from a couple different sources, but anyway, it looks like about 11 times over the last 2 years to complain about noise and other things from these neighbors. And in this final call, she carefully worded the call and says that she's been told what to say by officers that she knows. And the 911 dispatcher kind of assists her a little bit in correcting her report and kind of how she's phrased things, kind of asks her some questions and things. And it paints a very specific picture that seemingly indicates that the girlfriend of this man may have been shot and also is now being held hostage. So what has come to light is that this 911 caller is also a lady friend of a Cherokee County officer. Now, there's still a lot of questions that need to be answered about this case, which I will delve into in the future as more comes out. But suffice it to say, this looks very much like the headline that was used to describe it is not just a clever turn of phrase. It may have literally been a firing squad. And were it not for the interior security cameras, the cops would, likely have gotten away with shooting this man and would have put him in jail at best. And by the way, apparently, there were not only internal security cameras, there were external security cameras, and those may shed some light on things, and will be real interesting to see if that video is ever put out, and if it comes into play into the lawsuit that is pending. We do know that the city attorney or the county attorney that was representing and speaking for the Cherokee County Sheriff's Office has left. That person, and I'm sorry, I don't remember if it was a male or female, decided, nope, I don't want any part of this. I'm out. So that's another very interesting turn here. This thing just keeps getting deeper and deeper and murkier and murkier. And I'm following this case closely because it's within a day's drive from me, a short drive. And I spend time occasionally in Cherokee County, so I have some personal interest, but also just to give you an understanding that just because you live in a rural area doesn't mean things are all hunky-dory. In fact, the same kind of big city corruption and problems can pop up in your small town if you allow it to. But the good news there is that in the small town, you know where everyone lives. Anyway, that's all I got time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I will see you on the next episode.